What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Today is February 12th, 2019. In this video, I'm going to talk about the numerology of UFC 234. If you happen to be new to this channel, there's one component of numerology that's incredibly important to understand, and that is the language of Gematria, otherwise pronounced Gematria. It's the ancient practice of coding numbers into words. We start with the English ordinal cipher in the top left, where each letter is numbered 1 through 26 relative to its position in the alphabet. The reduction methods use the rules of numerology to reduce each double-digit number to a single digit. You may also be familiar with this, known as Pythagorean gematria or Agrippin. These methods can also be reversed, where Z is 1 and A is 26, for two complementary methods called reverse ordinal and reverse full reduction. When you pay attention to this numeric language and dates on the calendar, you quickly realize that something very strange is going on in this world. And it's that a lot of these organizations, such as the UFC, are being operated by a numeric code. And we're going to talk about how that applies for UFC 234. Let's start out with the gematria of UFC, Ultimate Fighting Championship abbreviated. In the alphabetic order, UFC sums to 30, U the 21st letter, F the 6th, and C the 3rd. In the reverse alphabetic order, UFC equals 51. Here, U gets the number 6 because it's the 6th from the end of the alphabet. C gets 24, it's way at the end. This event, UFC 234, took place on a date with numerology of 51. 2 plus 10 plus 20 plus 19. It took place in the nation of Australia, which sums to 30 in the reduction method. But what's more interesting is the reduction values of UFC. Using the rules of numerology, UFC sums to 12. And in the reverse alphabetic order, it sums to 15. February 10th, the date of this event, had numerology of 15 when reduced, with all the numbers here added individually together. It took place in the city of Melbourne, Australia. In the alphabetic order, our most significant cipher, notice how Melbourne equals 105, a lot like the number 15, whereas in numerology, the zeros are ignored. Speaking of the number 15, Israel Adesanya, who headlined the main event against Anderson Silva, came into the event with a 15-0 record. When you write out Ultimate Fighting Championship in reduction, notice how it sums to 150, like his record 15-0. We'll talk about a couple of other of these numbers shortly. But looking back at the reduction gematria of UFC again, we mentioned how the number 15 was significant. 15 numerology took place in Melbourne. Adesanya came in with 15 wins. Well, this event was held in Australia. And anytime you're looking at international events, you want to look at that nation's Independence Day. Australia's Independence Day is called Australia Day, and they celebrate it on January 26th. This event on February 10th was exactly 15 days after Australia Day. In regards to the date, February 10th, internationally the date is written 10/2, and UFC sums to 12 in reduction. The date February 10th is written here in the United States as 2/10. 15 days is also 2 weeks and 1 day, like 21. Also notice the gematria of Anderson da Silva in what we call Francis Bacon gematria. His full name, Anderson da Silva, summing to 210. This Francis Bacon method of gematria is very similar to the alphabetic order, but notice how the capital letters, we add 26 for each. So this cipher goes 1 through 52. And the name of his opponent Anderson de Silva 210 in this method. A few months ago, I decoded UFC 229, which was Khabib Nurmagomedov against Conor McGregor. The number 229 is significant to occulted numerologists. The 229th verse of Revelation reveals the number of the beast to be 666. That's Revelation 13:18. So not only do both men have connections to the number 229 in their basic gematria, but also consider that Conor McGregor's nickname is Mystic Mac. In our Jewish gematria cipher, which is based on the Latin alphabetic order seen on the screen here on the right, these ciphers produce much, much larger numbers than the alphabetic order, and these ciphers are structured more closely to Hebrew gematria and Greek isopsephy. One of Conor's nicknames is Mystic Mac, which sums to 666. When you write out 666, you get 1197. And in this same method, this happens to be the gematria of Nurmagomedov, his opponent. So UFC 229, undoubtedly a ritual in relation to the number 666. And we see this with the number 234 as well. Think about the number 234. If you add it to its inverse, 432, you get a sum of 666. So isn't it interesting that UFC 234 was held in Melbourne? And Melbourne in this Jewish cipher equals 432. Again, 234 plus 432 equaling 666. So UFC 234 was another beast riddle. In the last section, we talked about the number 15 and how significant it was for this date. UFC equals 15. Well, think about the 15th letter of the alphabet. It's the circle, the letter O. If you're familiar with my work, you may understand that the circle is interpreted as the mark of the beast, with time being the beast itself. Think about how time equals 47, just like the word beast equaling 47. And the circle is its mark. The circle equals 47. Israel Adesanya's last name also has gematria of 47 in the reverse method. Something else that's very significant to numerology is prime number relationships. The number 47 is the 15th prime number. Again, the 15th letter, the circle. The circle equals 47. Now, what about the 47th prime number? Well, the 47th prime number is 211. And look at Israel Adesanya's full name. Using the alphabetic order, his name equals 211, the 47th prime number. Adesanya got his win in the main event of UFC 234. Check out how using the reverse alphabetic order, mark of the beast equals 234. Now in standard English ordinal, mark of the beast equals 144. And check out Anderson Silva's birthday, the man he defeated this night. He was born on the date April 14th, which is written 14/4 internationally, like in Australia where this fight took place. So how fitting for this alignment, 144-234, with this man losing at UFC 234. Also worth mentioning is that this was Anderson Silva's 44th total fight in MMA. And when you write out the number 44, it sums to 144 in that same method. Think about the date April 4th written 4/4. Here we also get a 144. So we mentioned the Jewish gematria of Melbourne. Now, if you write out beast in this same method, you get 198. The name Anderson Silva equaling 198 in the reverse method. And if you think this is a coincidence, check out how these numbers were coded in to the event. UFC reported its gate as $2.47 million and then an 88 at the end, right? It's Anderson da Silva. This is his full name, as seen here on Wikipedia. Notice how in the reverse order, his name sums to 247. UFC reporting their gate as 2.47 million. And then way at the end, we get 88. Well, how about the fact that the word beast equals 88 in the reverse reduction method? While our eyes are on the alphabetic order, also check out Australia, which sums to 141. I found this interesting because these two fighters in the main event, Adesanya and Silva, their birthdays are separated by 14 weeks and 1 day. They're also 14 years apart, so you have a 14-14-1. Australia, where they fought, 141. Also in the alphabetic order, Ultimate Fighting Championship sums to 444. Now this is a number I talk about semi-regularly on my channel. In Sumerian Gematria, which is the alphabetic order times 6, 6 a number related to time. Many believe that the Sumerians were the ones who discovered time. Well, anyway, Masonic equals 444 in this method. One thing I want to point out before I continue, check out the name Israel Mobalaji Adesanya. Notice how in Jewish Gematria this sums to 1509. In English Gematria, Ultimate Fighting Championship equals 1509. And English Gematria is the same as Jewish, but it's structured using the current 26-letter alphabet, A to Z. So this is just to point out that the Gematria of Ultimate Fighting Championship is indeed significant. So here we're looking at the 444, which is the Gematria of Masonic in Sumerian. Well, the numbers of Masonic were stamped into this ritual, quite obviously. Check out the reduction methods, Masonic summing to 29 and 43. Anderson Silva was 43 weeks after his 43rd birthday, which is interesting. But also consider that Israel Adesanya was exactly 29 weeks after his 29th birthday. Again, Masonic, 29 and 43 in reduction. What also stands out about the number 2929 as it appears in Israel Adesanya's age, this is the Gematria of 1,331, which is one of the most significant numbers to this study. This is the number that represents a solar eclipse. Maybe I'll link that post down below for you guys to see. But yeah, 1,331 has this value of 2929. And check out the date numerology of this fight. 13 and 31. In Jewish Gematria, there's only one date that sums to 1331. That would be November 30th. November 30th was the date of the only total solar eclipse in the year 1331. In the same method, 1331 eclipse equals 1331. The date November 30th is written 11/30, and I find it interesting that Anderson Silva equals 1130, which is perhaps why the 1331 is so significant to him. Earlier we talked about how the mark of the beast is a circle, and I thought I gave some pretty good evidence for that, but also consider that Israel Adesanya's birthday is on the 22nd of July, 22 July. This date internationally is written 22/7. If you open up a calculator and put in the equation 22 divided by 7, you'll realize that it equals 3.14, the first three digits of pi. When you write out 22 divided by 7 in the alphabetic order, it equals 314. If you're using a Windows computer, Alt 227 will give you the pi symbol. So we know that 227 is significant to the circle. The 227th day of the year is August 15th, which is written 15/8 internationally. Of course, Freemasonry has this 158, very significant number. The name Anderson da Silva in the alphabetic order equals 158, again, tied to the number 227. And then to cap it off, they fought on the date February 10th, written 2/10. The word circles, summing to 210 in Jewish Gematria. There's a few more interesting things here with the numerology. I invite you to check out my post on UFC 234. My blog is linked below this video. But I also want to talk about a couple other things that show how this numeric language of Gematria is being used to script our mainstream media as well. A lot of people are familiar with the term fake news. However, most people misappropriate this term. They call fake news which kind of slips into the internet, which is unsourced, from sources like The Onion and whatnot. But really, the mainstream media is the biggest culprit of issuing fake news, and it's my contention that most of the stories we get in our mainstream media are completely fake, constructed by this numeric code. Let's take today, for instance, where El Chapo was found guilty on all 10 counts. Back in November, when he first went on trial, I made a post discussing the numerology of El Chapo and how it's related to Jesus Christ. This code of letters and numbers is based in the Bible, and of course the New Testament contains the story of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. El Chapo's real full name, in fact, has matching gematria with crucifixion of Jesus Christ. In reduction, El Chapo equals 33. His real first name, Joaquin, equals 33. Remember, Jesus crucified at age 33 under an eclipse. Eclipse equals 33. And to this day, this language, this eclipse crucifixion code, is still very much in play. Consider the year 2017 when we lost two big rock stars. The word rock star equals 33 in reduction gematria. First, we lost Chris Cornell. The name Chris equals 33. He died on May 18th of 2017, which was exactly 3 months, 3 days before the eclipse. Remember the Great American Eclipse in August of 2017. At Chris Cornell's funeral, his best friend Chester Bennington sang. The name Chester equals 33, and then Chester later died a span of exactly 33 days before that same exact eclipse. So isn't it interesting that after I made all these comparisons with El Chapo and Jesus, today is the day that he's found guilty, and today, February 12th, is the 43rd day of the year. In reduction, Jesus Christ equals 43. In ordinal, Chapo equals 43. His nickname, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, sums to 219, and here we are in the 43rd day of 2019. "43 is the 14th prime number, so it's pretty interesting that this article leads off mentioning how this man pocketed $14 billion. Of course, today's date, February 12th, 2 plus 12 equals 14. In the reverse alphabetic order, Jesus equals 61. This is the same as Joaquin Guzman in reduction, 61. Today, Joaquin Guzman, otherwise known as El Chapo, is 61 years old. Today's date of February 12th has what we call standard numerology of 33, 2 plus 12 plus 19. Like we mentioned, El Chapo equals 33, as does Joaquin. His full name, again, summing to 303. It also sums to 123 in reduction, and today is 1 month and 23 days before El Chapo's birthday. And we mentioned why 33 is significant, the word eclipse summing to 33. But also think about how the word circles equals 33. In something called satanic gematria summing to 666 in this method, 666, the 36th triangular number. This cipher begins on 36. Also notice how it ends on 61, which is the 18th prime number, and 18 is 6 plus 6 plus 6. El Chapo currently 61 years old. Anyway, in this method, circles equals 314, and think about pi, which resolves the mathematics of the circle. Pi, 3.14. Well, if you measure from El Chapo's birthday on April 4th to today's date, look at this, you get exactly 314 days. If you read up on El Chapo, you find that his third and final capture was made on the date January 8th of 2016. If you measure from the date he was arrested to the date that he's being sentenced, it's 3 years, 1 month, and 4 days. Again, just like pi. What also stands out is that his first arrest was on the date June 9th. Check out the gematria of pi in our Jewish method. Pi equals 69, and in ordinal it sums to 25. Well, the date on which he was arrested first was 6/9, June 9th, like pi. And measuring from that date to the date of his guilty verdict is 25 years, pi equaling 25. Again, it's the mathematics of the circle that's being used to script most of these mainstream news stories out. Mathematics of the circle equals 666. Another phrase which recently came to my attention is mathematical perfection. Interesting, this also has a value of 666. So we mentioned how today is 314 days after El Chapo's birthday. 314 days is very commonly also 10 months and 8 days. The phrase mathematics of the circle equals 108 with the S exception. The date of his first arrest, 6 plus 9 plus 93 equals 108. Gematria is geometry within the language. Notice how the word geometry has a mirror value of 108 in both the alphabetic and reverse alphabetic orders, 108. The phrase full moon equals 108 in both methods. And it's said that the moon is 108 times its diameter from the Earth, as is the sun. And speaking of the moon and geometry, if you go to Wikipedia and look at El Chapo's picture, notice how they conveniently set it up so there's a moon right over his shoulder here. See that? A full moon. Like we were just talking about the 108. The birth date that we're given for El Chapo is in the year 57. The moon ranges 57 degrees in the sky. It goes 28.5 degrees north and south of the equator. And in the alphabetic order, the word moon equals 57. So Wikipedia, run by Masonry. It's completely obvious what they're doing once you understand the code. And whenever we're talking about the moon, the number 13 is always relevant. Think about how the moon, which sums to 99, it has 13 lunar phases every couple years. 13 equals 99. And notice the value of 13 in these 4 base ciphers. It's got the same exact gematria as drug lord. Drug lord equals the same 4 numbers in the same 4 base ciphers. Notice how both 13 and drug lord sum to 45 in both reduction methods. Today's verdict falls exactly a span of 45 weeks after El Chapo's birthday. I find it interesting, too, that he was the head of the Sinaloa cartel. Notice how this has an ordinal gematria of 130, just like drug kingpin, 130. This number was coded into his trial as well. Check out the name of his attorney, Eduardo Balarezo, which sums to 1003 in Jewish gematria. Also, El Chapo is known for escaping prison on 2 different occasions. And what's really funny is that when you measure from his last escape, July 11th, 2015, to today's date, you get exactly 1,313 days. 2 13s. Not a coincidence, folks. This is how our mainstream media is being crafted by the numbers. It's pretty absurd. And check this out. If you multiply 13 times 13, you get 169. Joaquin Guzman, El Chapo's real name, 169. And speaking of the number 13, if you measure from the date this trial began, remember my first post on El Chapo was on November 13th of last year. Measuring from that date to the date that he was found guilty, we get exactly 13 weeks. Now, if we include the end date, we get 13 weeks in 1 day. The judge presiding over this trial was Judge Brian Cogan, whose name sums to 131, and his trial led to a guilty verdict on all 10 counts. 10 counts also summing to 131. Both the judge's name and the name of El Chapo's wife, they both have matching numbers with El Chapo Guzman. So that's pretty interesting. Wanted to point that out. Here's another story that was done completely by the numbers. Yesterday, Bob Costas was in the news because we learned that he broke up with NBC over his remarks about a concussion, or how concussions were ruining the NFL. Now, before I get into the numerology of this story, consider this. The name Bob equals 19. He retired from NBC in the first year of 2019. NBC equals 19. The date he retired was January 15th. And check out how if you add all the digits individually from that date, it sums to 19. Now, the 19th prime number is 67. On the date Bob Costas retired from NBC, he was a span of 67 days before his 67th birthday. So his retirement was completely by the numbers, and so is this story. In ordinal and reverse, Bob Costas sums to 96 and 147, which is the same as Freemason. And this is interesting because Freemason also sums to 42. And yesterday, February 11th, the date of this news story, was the 42nd day of the year. Bob Costas also sums to 42 with the S exception. His birth date, March 22nd of 1952, has a life lesson number of 42. And in this story, we're talking about his concussion remarks. The word concussion equals 42. Another thing that stands out about the date of this article, If you fast forward 42 days from February 11th, you get the date March 24th, which is written 24/3 internationally. Bob Costas' full name is Robert Quinlan Costas, which sums to 243 ordinal, and the only date you can get from this number is the 24th of March. The full numerology of this story was 52. 52 was the year that Bob Costas was born in, and this story is about how he was removed from the coverage of Super Bowl 52. The life lesson number of this story was 25. And notice how that date was exactly 25 weeks after the establishment date of the National Football League. 25 weeks is also 175 days. The number 175 was attributed in the Bleacher Report headline. That was the reduction value of the headline, 175. The same date, February 11th, is also 175 days before August 5th, written 8/5. And the reason that's significant is because both Costas equals 85, so does National Football League, 85 in reduction. The Gematria of that same headline, by the way, also summed to 220 with the S exception, which is the ordinal value of National Football League. Every single story that you see can be decoded this fashion. It's just a matter of how much time you want to spend on it. And lately I haven't been spending so much time. Well, maybe a little more the last week or so. But this is definitely what's going on. And there seems to be no end to the depth of this coding. Last week I did a video on the death of a second Milwaukee police officer, which was completely by the numbers. Part of the kill code. I invite you to check that video out. It's pretty damn interesting. Now, I was watching a video on YouTube a few days ago, and they mentioned Arthur Ashe. And it wasn't long ago that I decoded the death of Freddie Mercury, who died of AIDS. And that was completely by the numbers. So I figured, why not look at Arthur Ashe, who is the only other celebrity I can remember that died of AIDS. And the first thing that stuck out is that he died on the date February 6th, 1993. The second police officer who was killed in Milwaukee also died on the date February 6th, written 2/6. It was on the 26th anniversary of Arthur Ashe's death. So I noticed that and thought, maybe there's a numerical connection, and I was blown away by what I found. First of all, think about the date February 6th as it's written, 206. The word sacrifice equals 206 in Jewish Gematria. Arthur Ashe died on 206 of AIDS-related pneumonia. In the alphabetic order, AIDS-related pneumonia equals 206. And 26 years later to the day after he died, we got the second death of two police officers. Two police officers equals 260, 26 years later. That same date, February 6th, was 20 weeks, 6 days before the next total solar eclipse, which sacrifices are always related to, it seems. Arthur Ashe's birthday, July 10th, is also exactly a span of 206 days before Milwaukee's birthday of January 31st, separated by 206 days. But this is where it gets really weird. Arthur Ashe's full name is Arthur Robert Ashe Jr. Now, if you include the end date, the second police officer in Milwaukee died 26 years and 1 day after Arthur Ashe died. And check out the gematria of Arthur Robert Ashe Jr. in reverse, 261 and 225 ordinal. This is the same as Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 261 reverse, 225 ordinal. And the deaths fell 26 years and 1 day apart. Also, Milwaukee, measuring from its date of establishment, January 31st of 1846, we find that it turned 147 years old just a week before this officer was killed. And in the alphabetic order, Arthur Ashe Jr. equals 147. There's another prime number relationship. His full name summing to 1570, like 157, the 37th prime. Milwaukee summing to 37. This goes further as well. Arthur Ashe died in the city and state of New York. New York equals 33 in reverse reduction. He died because of AIDS, which sums to 33. AIDS was originally a disease that was within the gay community. Gay equals 33. The name Ashe equals 33 in reduction. And then 26 years later, we got a ritual related to the MPD, Milwaukee Police Department, which equals 33. And the names of those two officers, Michael Michalski and Matthew Rittner, sums to 330 in the alphabetic order. Both of these men were police officers. Police equals 33. Arthur Ashe was a tennis player, which sums to 81 in both ordinal and reverse. Milwaukee, Wisconsin equals 81 in reduction. There's just too many alignments here for this to be a coincidence. Also see how Milwaukee, Wisconsin sums to 108 in reverse reduction. Arthur Ashe died of pneumonia, which equals 108. This number, 108, like 18, the 18th prime number is 61. Arthur Ashe equals 61. His name also equals 47 in reduction. The 47th prime number is 211. And Arthur Ashe died 211 days after his birthday. Ritual human sacrifice equals 211. That same date, by the way, was 154 days before his next birthday. Ritual sacrifice, 154, same cipher, the alphabetic order. So, is this connected? Abso-frickin-lutely. It's just wild what they're doing with the numbers. I can't even believe it myself. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Thanks to everybody who jumped in the chat here. Looks like it wasn't terribly busy. I noticed a lot fewer people are watching my videos now than were just a few weeks ago, 60, 70 at a time usually. And this is what we're facing with YouTube. YouTube has recently admitted that they're taking conspiracy-related content, out of the search algorithms, out of the sidebars and whatnot. And unfortunately, this is what's being viewed as conspiracy-related content. All I'm doing is running numbers and adding them, but if you aren't approved by the establishment, your videos will not get promoted anymore. That's what's going on. And videos like this that are exposing the truth about what's happening in this world definitely fall into that category. So thanks to everybody who does continue to hit the like button, who is sharing and subscribing to this content. Again, I'm on my second YouTube channel. My website even faced censorship last month by the numbers. It is back up, but there are now problems with it. My PHP database in the background corrupted for some reason. So I had to take the number properties offline, as well as a couple other features. For all those of you who are watching, you're looking for more decodes. Recently, I started decoding the states. All 50 states, 1 through 50. And I'm looking at the numerology of the establishment of those states and the numerology of those states' first governor. And it's pretty obvious that every single state is coded by these numbers. And I'm going to continue this for a little while. So once again, thanks to everybody for jumping in. Peace, love, and God bless. See ya!